How to mitigate financial risk in construction. Mitigating financial risk is a lot like Monopoly, and I love playing Monopoly. So do you want to know how to play the game? We're going to talk about that in this video right now. In this video, I will share with you my approach to financial projections, how you can make it fun, or at least as fun as possible, and what to look out for. So let me just level with you. Most of my career in the field has been in avoidance of the financial aspect of it. I used to say things like, let the PM worry about that. I'm just going to go build the stuff in the field, right? I'm not criticizing anybody who says that, but that's not exactly accurate. So what we have to do is create an industry environment where superintendents and PMs are able to manage the finances together and to really strategize, and I will say use key tactics to make sure that we meet our profit targets on the project. So in this video, I'm going to cover my general approach to it. I think you'll love it. And as long as your company has a format where you can see this data, you can probably even make it fun. So to finish off my story, I do want to tell you there was a point where when I was working in the field, I finally just grabbed the PM and I was like, I want to know what everything means. I want to know what all this means. What's the difference between gross profit, net profit? How does contingency get calculated? The whole nine. And this is an interesting story, actually. I went into that effort or that approach with the idea that everybody knew what they were doing, and I was just ignorant. So the more questions I asked, the more we dug into it, and I got a lot of comments like this. Oh, well, actually, we don't track it like that. I could actually break that number out. Well, actually, we don't know. We need to link to this database. Well, actually, we haven't finalized those. And I was like, whoa, like we are in a chaotic nightmare here, right? So if you're not an expert, if you're not a button pusher when it comes to finances, it's totally fine. Ask the questions, and I bet you if it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't even make sense to the experts. And so every organization that I've been around, if you can't clearly see, hey, this plus this equals this, and it's like super understandable, like to where I could probably explain it to one of my teenage kids at home, you probably don't have the right data. So as you go into this with a bit of confidence, just put on your head, use your common sense, and it's going to pan out. Because remember, numbers love you and you love numbers. So let's do this. First of all, if you really do love numbers, why don't you just symbolize that by hitting the like button on the video? Because I'm just saying, it's a good way to do it. Then I'll know. Like when I see the likes, I'll know, oh, you love numbers. Okay, so let's go through this analogy. Here's one of my favorites. And I was playing Monopoly with my kids. I have 11 kids. They're all mine. I pay taxes. I'm a good father. 11 kids, a lot of them. They love to play Monopoly with their dad. And I realized the key. And this is a little bit sneaky, and I don't know if it shines a good light on my character or not, but I realized some tricks, and I realized where my kids were going wrong. So I am like really perfectionistic about my cash when I'm playing Monopoly. I'll like stack all the bills and like feather them to where I can see how many I have at my board. I've got all my properties listed over here in my area. It's all beautifully organized. So I know exactly how much cash I have on hand at any given moment. I know how many properties I have, and I'm able to monitor the board. One thing that I noticed about my kid, I wasn't deceiving him. I just didn't give him the secret. I gave him the secret after I won, of course. But one of the things I noticed, they had their cash all over the place. They didn't know how much they had. Sometimes they had their properties turned upside down. They didn't know, so they weren't able to make good decisions. So imagine this. So we all know, whether you're proficient at Monopoly or not, that you have a board, and if your piece rolls a number and hits on somebody else's property, you're going to shell out dough, right? And you know that if somebody's coming towards your properties, you have the ability not only to go and collect $200, but also to get money from renters. So the whole game of Monopoly is the balance of monitoring your risk when you're rolling your piece versus the reward of people possibly hitting your properties. So here's the key. You can either buy properties or not buy them based on how much cash you have, based on the risks of your roll and the opportunities of people rolling onto your property. You can only win that game and play that strategy if you can see the board where you're heading, if you can see the other pieces where they're heading, and if you know real time how much cash you have and know real time how much money you got coming in. This sounds a lot like construction management, right? Is that we've got to know from our owner's pay applications how much money we have coming in, what our current profit projection is, and we've got to know our risks and how much money could be going out, and we've got to manage them to play the game. My point with the monopoly is, if you're looking at your risks and your possible opportunities or rewards, you can't do it, you can't play it, you can't win if you can't see. So you've got to see. And so the topic of this video here today is how to mitigate financial risk in construction. So let me give you an outline. By the way, in the description below, I will link you to a beautifully formatted Canva graphic of what you should be able to see at a minimum on your project. But let me go through these one by one. This is not boring. Stay with me, because at the end, you're really going to like this. So first of all, let me give you the definition of mitigate. I looked it up, and it's to make or become less harsh or severe. So when we talk about mitigating risks, that means make them less harsh or severe. Okay, so the problem is if those risks happen and we have to take a loss in fee and write down that project. So in order for that to not happen, yes, you are going to identify and track your risks. Yes, you are going to identify and track your opportunities. Yes, in pre-construction, you are going to anchor to historical projects. But once you set the deal, you can do a lot by managing your budget and the numbers, which I'm going to show you right now. So first of all, however you are showing it, whether it's in a computer program or it's an Excel sheet or a summary sheet, whatever, one of the first categories you should have are your subcontractor budgets. The budget that you have to pay them for their contract to execute their scope of work. Now, you will have budget contingency inside your overall budget, meaning you will have monies in there that you will be able to allocate towards buying out these subcontracts. And if you have a good estimator, they will make sure that it is responsibly padded enough to where we do not go over budget and you can move some money around. On your financial projection sheet, you should be able to see your original overall target for your subcontracts and broken out, and your current status for the buyout of those contracts overall and broken out. This will tell you the status or the amount of your buyout contingency, which matters if you have shared savings. And if you don't, at least it makes sure that you are not at risk for paying for an overrun. So you should be able to, at a glance, see the plus or the minus on how you're projecting from a buyout standpoint with your subcontracts, including your contingency at any point in the project, and also compare that number with the percentage of buyout for your subcontractors that is complete and the percentage of buyout for subcontractors remaining. So if you have, let's say, 50% of the contracts or the amount to still buy out, but you only have 30% of your buyout contingency left, you might need to begin strategizing to see what you're going to do about that situation. The biggest thing for you to know, is there a shared savings clause in the contract? If you, and this is important, and this is just how the game is played, so don't get mad at me, right? So if you get that money back, then you might take more of a let's really get the best price approach. If you don't get that money back and you want higher levels of certainty on your project, you may decide to really make sure some of those subcontractor numbers are whole so that you are covered from an execution standpoint as long as you're not projecting over. Let me give you an example. If I was in a shared savings environment, I might just really do my best to try and reduce costs, and for a representative example for my final clean contractor, pay for one mobilization and some possible comebacks. If I was under budget but there was no shared savings, I might say, no, I pretty much know you're going to do one pass through the building and probably a second pass after we come back and do punch list, after the test and balancing technicians go through the building. So I might, if we still have the money, decide to make that budget or that contract more whole. So where your numbers are determine what you're going to do. As a part of your projections, you will also want to see your fee, any labor gains from your staff, from your general requirements, or from your self-perform work. You will want to see gains on bonds, gains on insurance, gains on any equipment rentals. Let's say you're renting on the project some equipment from yourself. And the reason, let me just stop right there for just a second. Well, actually, let me give you two examples there. Let's say that you have a guaranteed maximum price, you have a GMP, and you're on budget and you're tracking well with money to spare, but there's no savings. Okay? This is the way the game is played. Don't be mad at me. Okay? But you're in a mindset of let's reduce the staff as much as possible. But let's say you get labor gains on an additional project engineer or field engineer, meaning their billing rates are more than what you pay them, you get that money. Okay? You might decide we're tracking well, we have plenty of contingency, there is no shared savings. I need the additional field engineer and project engineer so I don't have to struggle through this and scrimp and save. I can go get that field engineer or that project engineer and gain $80, $160, $240,000 in addition just on labor gains by having these people on the project site. I needed them anyway. I might as well not burn my team out. There is no shared savings and we have the money, so this is a good decision. The team defaults to, oh no, keep your team size as small as possible, but that may not be what the numbers are showing. The other thing, let me explain this. I remember one time when we had a GMP with no shared savings and we were renting the tower crane from ourselves. And we could struggle through using hydro cranes and erecting them later and shutting down most of the site, or we could keep the tower crane for another 6 weeks. It would be a lot easier with the tower crane, and we were renting it from ourselves. This wasn't a cost that was lowering our budget. It was actually benefiting us, and there were no shared savings incentivizing us to get those costs down. So because it was kind of apples to apples, we were like, no, we're renting that crane from ourselves. We're going to keep that another 6 weeks. We will get the rental gains on that because there's no shared savings, and it's just as ethical as using the hydro cranes, and it will be less difficult on our site logistics. So we were able to make a strategic decision based on the numbers. So let me keep going. Then inside your projections, you should also see the status of your allowance categories. You should see your line item and track your general conditions, your general requirements, and be able to paint a picture for where you are budget-wise. Now, here's where it gets remarkable. You should have categories that add up your current contractor projected risks, your known exposures from change orders that are actually logged, any projected exposures on that same sheet, and you should be able to tell how much you're going to use from your contractor contingency. You should also know your current owner or designer risks, their known change orders, their potential change orders that are logged, and you should know how much of the contingency is going to be used for the design and how much the owner category of contingency is going to be taken from the construction contingency, so you know how much you have left. This will allow you to pair your risk and opportunity register with your contingency buckets, and it will allow you to make decisions on whether or not you take the money from your overall project budget, whether you actually submit a change order to increase the budget, or whether you take it out of contingency. It will allow you to make better decisions. You should also loop in financial opportunities from your risk and opportunity register. And at the end, log down and summarize everything with the gross profit target that your company needs you to hit for it to be profitable. And you should see the delta from where you're projecting to what you need so that you as a team can start making decisions. The key is to analyze the numbers. I remember, I'll tell you one more story. I know this is a long video, but one more story that's super pertinent. We had a lump sum self-perform contract, and then our budget for the overall project was a GMP with no shared savings, I might add. We were doing well in the budget, and we were conservatively coding certain types of cleaning activities and other maintenance activities to our self-perform budget because we were defaulting to being responsible with the owner. There was a point where we realized, well, hold on a minute. These codes really should probably be in the general requirements coding and in that category. And the more we take out of, and I'm saying we're doing this ethically, the more we take out of self-perform, because that's a lump sum contract, the more fee we will lose. So we were looking at, instead of the mental default of no, code it here because this is the default, we realized no, these are more appropriate as a part of the general requirements in the overall project budget and not in our lump sum self-perform budget. And we were able to increase our profit percentage, use the proper codes, and really be whole all the way around. And so you've got to know the way your contract is written. You've got to know the numbers. You've got to know how all the buckets are working so that you can project a strategy. There's at least 10 to 15 things you can do when your number goes below your profit target that you can do to start playing with the numbers and map a path to the end where you can be profitable. So this is my best answer for how to mitigate financial risks on a construction project. In the description below, I am going to link you to a beautiful graphic that shows these categories. If you're not able to see this, you know the next step in your company is to get it to where you can see these financial projections so you can play the game, so you can win. I hope you've enjoyed this video. On we go.